Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. We're tackling a topic that I think affects all of us.
Yeah.
And that's denial.
Oh, absolutely.
And we have this really insightful article that we're going to kind of dissect together.
Okay.
And we want to understand not just what denial is, but how it shows up in our lives. And I think, sometimes disastrous results.
Absolutely.
Get ready for some aha moments.
Yeah.
Because I think understanding denial is like getting a backstage pass to our own brains.
Yeah.
And often baffling choices that we make.
Totally. And I think what's so interesting about denial is it's not just a personal phenomenon. It shapes societies and it dictates history and influences how we even tackle global challenges.
Like this silent puppet master.
Yeah.
Pulling strings we don't even know are there.
That's a great way to put it.
But I think before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we should start with the basics.
Okay.
How does this article define denial?
Yeah, so it describes it as a psychological defense mechanism, a way for our minds to hit the pause button on a reality that's just too tough to handle.
So like when you spill coffee all over your brand new white rug.
Yeah.
And you're like, maybe no one will notice.
Exactly, like a buffer from immediate emotional overload. But here's the thing. Denial doesn't always wear a big, obvious sign. It can be really sneaky and show up in ways we might not even recognize.
Tell me more about these sneaky disguises.
Yeah, so the article breaks it down into three main types.
Okay.
Simple denial, which is the most straightforward, flat-out refusal. Imagine someone with a gambling problem, racking up all this debt, but insisting that they have it all under control.
Oh, yeah.
Then there's minimization,
Okay.
where you acknowledge something's true, but you shrink its importance.
Okay.
So admitting you have some clutter, but claiming it's organized chaos.
Oh, I like that.
And lastly, we have projection,
Okay.
where we shift the blame outwards. Think of the student who blames the bad grade on the teacher's teaching style, rather than on their own lack of preparation.
Oh, yeah. I think each of these types is really fascinating because it highlights how our brains are wired to protect our egos.
Totally.
Who wants to admit that they messed up or that their worldview might be flawed?
Right, and that's where the danger lies, because denial might provide some temporary comfort, but in the long run, it keeps us stuck.
Yeah.
It prevents us from learning and growing and making positive changes.
So denial is a little bit of a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
The article acknowledges that it's not always a bad thing.
That's a really important point. Think of denial as a first responder to a psychological crisis.
Okay.
In the immediate aftermath of trauma or loss, a little bit of denial can be protective. It gives us space to process those really painful emotions without totally shutting down.
It's like our brain is giving us a moment to catch our breath.
Yeah.
Before we have to dive into the depths of grief or fear.
Exactly. The key here is that it's temporary.
Okay.
It's a bridge to get us to a place where we can start processing and coping in healthier ways.
So when does this helpful tool become a harmful habit?
When it overstays its welcome.
Okay.
When we cling to denial for too long, it morphs from a protective mechanism into a barrier to growth.
Yeah.
Imagine someone ignoring a suspicious mole out of fear.
Right.
Yeah, while that might offer temporary peace of mind, the potential consequences down the line are so much more daunting.
This reminds me of the classic ostrich with its head in the sand analogy.
Right.
But ignoring a problem doesn't make it disappear.
No, it doesn't at all. In fact, it often makes it worse. And the longer we stay in denial, the higher the price we pay. We might miss out on opportunities or to damage relationships or even jeopardize our health.
Let's talk about the price of denial.
Okay.
The article paints a kind of grim picture
Yeah.
of what happens when we let denial rule our lives.
The consequences are far-reaching. They impact us personally, relationally, professionally, and even on a societal level. It's like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Starting with the individual and spreading outwards.
So it's not just about personal struggles. Denial has the power to shape our world.
Absolutely.
I'm ready to dive deeper into those consequences.
Okay, let's do it.
What are some of the ways that denial shows up in our everyday lives?
Let's start with something we can all relate to, like relationships.
Yeah.
Think about a couple where one partner is consistently unhappy, but the other refuses to acknowledge it. Yeah. That denial prevents them from addressing the underlying issues, which can lead to resentment, communication breakdowns, and eventually the relationship falling apart.
It's like building a house on a foundation of sand.
Right.
Sooner or later, the whole thing's going to crumble.
Exactly.
But denial doesn't just affect our personal lives, right?
Absolutely not. The article also explores how denial can sabotage our careers. Imagine someone clinging to an outdated skill set
Yeah.
despite the industry evolving around them.
Right.
Their denial prevents them from adapting and learning new skills, which could ultimately lead to job loss.
It's like clinging to a sinking ship instead of hopping on the life raft.
A perfect analogy.
And then there's the impact on our health.
Yes.
We've all been guilty of downplaying a symptom or two, hoping it'll just magically disappear.
Of course.
But ignoring those warning signs can have serious consequences.
Absolutely. I'm sure we've all been there too.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a little cough. I'm sure it's nothing.
Exactly.
We tell ourselves these little white lies to avoid confronting uncomfortable truths.
Right?
But early detection is crucial for so many health issues, and the longer we stay in denial, the harder it becomes to treat.
Yeah, it's like ignoring a small crack in a dam.
Yeah.
Eventually, it can turn into a catastrophic flood.
Such a powerful image, and it highlights the importance of facing our fears and taking action.
I think it's clear that denial can be this powerful force,
Mm,
shaping our choices and impacting our lives in really profound ways.
totally.
But the good news is, we don't have to be its prisoners.
We don't.
The article suggests several strategies for confronting denial and reclaiming our agency.
Yeah, and that's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive. We'll explore those strategies in detail and really equip you with the tools to start breaking free from denial's grip.
I'm so eager to learn more about those tools
Yeah,
and start applying them to my own life.
me too.
I think it's time to ditch the denial and then embrace reality,
Yes,
even if it's a little uncomfortable at first.
exactly. Remember, this is a journey, not a destination. Be patient with yourself, and we'll dive into those strategies together.
Awesome, I can't wait. Welcome back, Deep Divers. We've laid the groundwork exploring the what and why of denial.
Yeah.
Now it's time to shift gears and get a little bit practical.
We're going to equip you with some actionable strategies
Yeah, okay.
to start dismantling those denial walls brick by brick.
Hey.
And don't worry, you don't need a sledgehammer. Sometimes the most effective tool is a simple mirror.
A mirror. What do you mean?
Self-awareness.
Okay.
That's the foundation of any real change.
Yeah.
The article really emphasizes that we can't dismantle what we don't see. So the first step is to shine a light on those areas where we might be in denial.
But denial's a master of disguise, right?
It is.
So how do we even begin to spot those sneaky patterns in our own behavior?
Think of it like detective work. You need to gather clues and look for patterns.
Okay.
And one of the most effective ways to do that is through journaling.
Journaling. That seems so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Can something that basic really help us uncover those deep-seated patterns of denial?
It's all about creating space for honest reflection.
Okay.
When we write things down, we're forced to slow down, pay attention to our thoughts and feelings, and confront those things we might be trying to avoid.
So it's not about writing a perfectly crafted essay.
No.
It's about using writing as a tool to excavate those hidden truths.
Precisely start by asking yourself some simple questions. What situations or topics trigger a strong emotional response? What thoughts or beliefs keep popping up in your mind? What are you avoiding thinking or talking about?
It's like we're interviewing ourselves,
You got it.
trying to get to the bottom of what's really going on beneath the surface.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get messy. This is a safe space for you to explore those raw, unfiltered thoughts and emotions. You might be surprised by what you uncover.
I'm sold. I'm going to dust off my old journal and give this a try. What other strategies does the article suggest for cultivating self-awareness?
Another powerful practice is mindfulness.
Okay.
We touched on this briefly before, but it's worth emphasizing.
Yeah.
Mindfulness is about cultivating a non-judgmental awareness of the present moment.
So paying attention to our breath, our body sensations, our thoughts and emotions, without getting swept away by them.
Yeah, exactly.
But how does that help us confront denial?
The more we practice mindfulness, the more easily we can observe our own patterns of denial. We start to notice those subtle cues that tell us we might be heading into denial territory.
Okay.
Maybe it's a feeling of tightness in your chest when a certain topic comes up, or an urge to change the subject when someone asks a difficult question.
It's like mindfulness gives us X-ray vision into our own minds.
I like that. It's about becoming more attuned to our internal warning system. Those subtle signals that tell us we might be trying to avoid something uncomfortable.
Okay, I'm starting to see how self-awareness and mindfulness go hand in hand.
They do.
But let's be real.
Yeah.
Sometimes even when we're aware of our denial, it can still feel incredibly difficult to break free from it.
It can.
What do we do when we feel stuck?
That's where resilience comes in.
Okay.
We need to develop that inner strength and emotional fortitude to face those uncomfortable truths head on.
It's like we're training for an emotional marathon.
Yeah.
We need to build up those mental
I
muscles.
love that analogy. And the article provides some great tips for building resilience.
Okay.
One is through therapy.
Hmm.
A skilled therapist can provide a safe and supportive space to explore those deep-seated fears, beliefs, and patterns that might be fueling your denial.
Therapy can be such a valuable resource, but that's not accessible to everyone.
Right.
What are some other ways to build resilience?
Support groups can also be incredibly helpful. Connecting with others who share similar experiences can help us feel less alone, reduce shame, and gain valuable insights and coping strategies.
There's power in shared experience, isn't there?
Oh, there is.
It reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles.
Absolutely. And even simple self-care practices can make a big difference. Things like exercise, meditation, spending time in nature, or pursuing creative activities can all help to boost our mood, reduce stress, and build our resilience.
It's like we're filling up our emotional tank,
Yeah.
so we have the energy and strength to face those tough challenges.
Yeah.
But resilience isn't something we achieve overnight, is it?
It's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
It's about showing up for ourselves consistently, even
Yeah.
when it's hard. And the more we practice resilience, the stronger we become.
Okay, so we've got self-awareness, we've got resilience. What's the final piece of this denial-busting puzzle?
This might sound counterintuitive, but it's about embracing vulnerability.
Vulnerability. But isn't denial all about protecting ourselves from being vulnerable?
It often is, but the paradox is that by trying to shield ourselves from vulnerability, we end up cutting ourselves off from authentic connection, growth, and healing.
So how do we start to embrace vulnerability? It can feel so scary to let down our guard and show our true selves, especially if we've been hurt in the past.
It starts with small steps. Maybe it's sharing something personal with a trusted friend or family member, or seeking out a therapist who can provide that safe and non-judgmental space to explore those vulnerable parts of ourselves.
It's about finding those safe havens where we can practice being vulnerable without fear of rejection or judgment.
Yeah.
What are the benefits of embracing vulnerability? Why should we even bother?
When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we create the space for deeper connection, intimacy, and healing. It's like we're shedding those layers of protection and allowing ourselves to be fully human, imperfections and all.
That's a beautiful image. And it highlights the transformative power of vulnerability.
It does.
So instead of fearing vulnerability, we should embrace it as a path to growth and connection.
Exactly. And when we combine vulnerability with self-awareness and resilience, we create a powerful force for change.
So we've got our toolkits: self-awareness, resilience, and vulnerability. These are the weapons we need to dismantle the walls of denial and step into a more authentic, empowered life.
And remember, you are not alone in this journey. There are resources available, people who care, and strategies that can help you break free from denial's grip.
So if you're ready to start confronting those areas of your life where you might be in denial, take that first step. Reach out, seek support, and remember that change is always possible.
And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some specific techniques for cultivating self-awareness, building resilience, and embracing the power of vulnerability.
Stay tuned, folks, because the journey continues.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've explored the personal side of denial, from its sneaky disguises to its profound impact on our lives, especially when it comes to processing grief. And now we're going to zoom out and look at denial on a much larger scale, the societal level. And if you think denial's powerful in our individual lives, just imagine its force when multiplied across communities, countries, even the entire world.
I'm already feeling a little intimidated, like we're about to face a denial Godzilla.
Yeah.
But seriously, how does denial manifest on a societal level?
Think of it like the societal denial is the collective blind spot, the shared refusal to acknowledge uncomfortable truths that challenge the status quo.
Uh-huh.
It's the invisible force that can stall progress, perpetuate injustice, and even lead to catastrophic consequences.
The article we're diving into gives this chilling example: the historical denial of climate change.
Right.
Despite mounting scientific evidence, many powerful individuals and institutions spent decades downplaying the threat, delaying crucial action, and ultimately exacerbating the problem.
And it's a stark reminder that societal denial isn't just a philosophical concept. You know, it has real-world implications that affect all of us, and climate change is just one example. We can see similar patterns of denial in the way societies have historically dealt with issues like poverty, inequality, and systemic discrimination.
It's like we're collectively hitting the snooze button on these critical issues, hoping they'll just magically disappear if we ignore them long enough.
Yeah, and as we've learned from exploring personal denial, ignoring a problem doesn't make it go away.
Right.
It often makes it worse.
But if societal denial is so pervasive, how do we even begin to challenge those deeply entrenched patterns of avoidance? The task seems daunting, almost impossible. Where do we even begin?
It starts with awareness. We need to become more attuned to the ways in which denial is operating in our communities, our institutions, even our own thinking.
So, paying attention to the narratives we consume, questioning the assumptions we hold,
Yes.
challenging those, that's just the way it is mentality.
Exactly, and it's not about pointing fingers or assigning blame.
Okay.
It's about fostering a culture of honest dialogue and critical thinking.
But how do we have those difficult conversations when denial is so often intertwined with deeply held beliefs and ideologies? It seems like every issue these days is so polarized.
You're right, it can be incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
But that's where empathy becomes essential. We need to approach these conversations with a willingness to understand different perspectives, even if we don't agree with them.
So instead of trying to win the argument, we focus on building bridges and finding common ground.
Exactly, and that requires a willingness to be vulnerable, to admit that we don't have all the answers, and to be open to learning from others.
That's a tall order in our current climate of like outrage and division.
Yeah.
But I think it's a necessary one if we want to break free from societal denial and create a more just and sustainable world.
I agree, and it's not just about talking, it's about taking action. We need to support organizations and individuals who are working to address the root causes of these societal problems.
Okay.
We need to hold our leaders accountable, demand transparency, and advocate for policies that promote equity and sustainability.
So it's a multi-pronged approach. Awareness, dialogue, and action.
It is.
It sounds like a lot of work.
It is, but it's necessary work.
Yeah.
And the good news is that we don't have to do it alone. There are countless individuals and organizations already engaged in this fight. We just need to join forces and amplify those efforts.
It's like we're building a movement, a collective force for change.
I like that.
And that movement starts with each one of us confronting denial in our own lives and challenging it in the world around us.
Well said. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought. The opposite of denial isn't just acceptance.
Okay.
It's engagement.
Okay.
It's about showing up, speaking out, and taking action to create the world we want to see.
That's a powerful message, and it's a call to action for all of us.
It is.
We've explored the depths of denial from its personal impact to its societal consequences. Now it's time to use that knowledge to fuel our own journey of awareness, growth, and change.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep pushing for a better world.